This is Navigating Cyber Risk podcast with me, John Riley, and George Usey as your hosts. Join us as we explore the challenges faced by executives as they grapple with new and ever-changing cybersecurity mandates. Welcome to the Navigating Cyber Risk with your host, John Riley, where we explore the challenges faced by executives as they grapple with new cybersecurity mandates. Today, we have an amazing guest who has skied in the Antarctica. He's bicycled 148 miles in a day, crossed both Arctic circles. Introducing CEO of MITS Capital, Perry Boyle. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, John.
And thanks for joining today. So I'm just going to jump right in here with our lead question, which is, how would you explain the difference between cybersecurity and cyber risk?
Well, I always think that risk is, something can go bad. And security is the mitigant to that, is to make sure that if you can't prevent the thing from going bad, you do. And if the thing does go bad, that you catch it quickly and minimize its damage.
And I would agree with that. Risk
consistent with your thoughts?
Risk is the bigger part of it, right? The overall, how are you dealing with all of the risk, right? But yeah, cybersecurity is much more of the day-to-day, the technology, the processes, the procedures, the mitigation of those risks, right? Just like having insurance. Yes. So I agree with that. And then, so as a CEO, right, what's the most significant cybersecurity threat that you see facing most companies today?
Well, it's hard to speak for other companies, but, we operate in a war zone. We operate in Ukraine, so we have multiple levels of cybersecurity risk. I'm holding my phone in my hand, this being one of the most risky things that we have. I spend a significant amount of time in Ukraine, as do many Russian agents. And it's very hard to know when and where and how badly your phone got compromised. There's certain hotels I won't go into because I know what goes on in those hotels. But so far, the sweeps on this have been good. But just even operationally, we operate in the drone wars, and the security of communications in the drone operations is that's our number one threat right now, is getting jammed. And how and where they jam us, they being the Russians, is very sophisticated. I mean, they're very good at this game.
Had a lot of practice, and more so coming. I've got a friend who actually does something similar, or did something similar. He's now retired, but how to take a drone out of a sky in the U.S. So, but also what you talked about with your phone there. I mean, if you're doing traveling and you've got different SIM cards or eSIM cards,
yeah.
How can those those can be hacked, or those can be duplicated on a separate phone?
Absolutely.
Which what a lot of people don't maybe understand is that then that can compromise their two-factor authentication, right?
Absolutely. There's no such thing as 100% secure, I don't think. Every system can be gamed, every lock can be picked. And when quantum gets here, I don't know what we're going to do.
Yeah, I mean, every lock will be picked at some point. I mean, it's always a matter of when, not just if. And
right.
No matter how good a lock you have, somebody will break it.
But I think that goes to a key point that you're asking about cyber risk. And one of the challenges is how concentrated is your risk, and how diverse is your risk, how resilient is your approach. So do you have one system that if it fails, lights out, or do you have redundancy and resiliency built into the architecture?
Or have you planned for it, right? I mean, the other piece is that if you have those, if you have an issue, have you practiced? Who do you call? Who's that PR person? Who's the lawyer that you call? Or do you already have retainers with them? Because at some point it's going to happen, and so you just have the retainer there for when it does. Right?
Yeah. Well, we know that we are going to be invaded. Like, it's just a question of when and how bad. And I think we presume the worst.
Right. That's what you have to prepare for.
Yeah.
So along those lines, then, as as a CEO, what are you doing to prioritize risks, or what would you tell other CEOs that they need to do to prioritize those risks, right?
Well, obviously, you need to think like the adversary and anticipate where the holes in the network are and where the vulnerabilities are, and then how much security can you afford? It's not free, it's not cheap, and it can slow you down, right? My brother used to work for a three-letter agency. It took him from the car until he was at his desk, took him 17 minutes just to get through all the doors and everything. It took him another 13 minutes to log on to his computer every day. So that's half an hour a day of security before you do any work. That has a cost. And finding the right balance, well, you never find the right balance because you only know ex post whether you had enough security.
Even then, it's still I mean,
Yeah.
there's also an acceptable level of risk that you have to take. I mean, the air you breathe, but when it comes to cyber, it's a little different. But I mean,
Yeah.
there's always risk, no matter how much you're doing to try and prevent it. Somebody might click on the wrong email. Somebody might, somebody in the organization might just have be distracted and cause an issue.
But, in a contested environment, it's even worse, like, because wireless printers, like anything that's connected that you sometimes you don't even think about it. Like, do you drive a Tesla? Did they get to you that way? Like, there's anything that you're connected to is a vulnerability.
I just set up a grill this last weekend, and I was trying to connect to my network, and I was having questions about whether I really wanted my smoker connected to my network, and in my case, I set up a guest VLAN and everything else. But yes, it was a valid question of
I
risk.
mean, the Internet of Everything is very cool, but it's very, do I really need to be able to turn on my washing machine from anywhere in the world? Is that really that important to me? Or my coffee maker? Like, do I really need to be able to wirelessly connect to it from bed? Like,
I know people with coffee makers that would be something that would be required. So, yeah, so it just depends. I think that depends on addiction, but that's another podcast that we'd have to do.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so, what would you suggest?
And as always, people are your biggest vulnerability.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, that I think that is, and I've been around the block enough to know that you just have to have extremely low expectations of everyone's commitment to security, especially the bigger the company you are, the less that your employees feel ownership over the outcome of a bad event, the less likely they are to protect you from it.
I think that there's also just a level of distraction, right? I mean, I
Mhm,
from a personal level, I can tell you that during there was I had a period where my father passed away, right? And for probably the
mhm.
next 6 months, my distraction level was much higher than it normally would be, right? Or maybe my tolerance, or I mean, just I would look at an email and maybe not really process it, right? I mean, for instance, right? And so then not clicking or not doing the things that we were supposed to, I wasn't quite as vigilant at doing those things. Uh,
Yes.
so I think that that's that distraction. Depending, I mean, if you're talking a child, if you're talking a parent, if you're talking things like that with something going on in life, I mean,
Yep.
that's when that's just human weakness that comes in, and that's part of what you have to understand and do your best to mitigate.
Yeah, where I was going with this though is, affiliation. How affiliated do your people feel with your organization? If they feel totally clued into the mission, very appreciated when they show up for work, I think they're more vigilant than if they're just a cog in the machine. It's just a job. They're working for you today, but they could go work for somebody else tomorrow.
And I would agree with that. But I mean, what
They
I'm
got to care. They have
yeah.
to care.
Well, that's what I said. I mean, we're saying the same thing. I mean, the life experiences is kind of what I was talking about.
Yeah,
Because those override some of that culture
sure.
and the pieces. But only to a degree. I mean, yes, having a mission and having them, having everybody committed is absolutely one thing. But when personal things happen, or that distraction can still take you from the mission for a short period of time, right?
Absolutely.
Or distract you from it. And that's so we're saying the same thing. And it really
Yeah.
is that human part where, I mean, we've done our best in technology to make what we call the human firewall, but it's there's still human mistakes, right?
Yeah.
It's still the keyboard chair interface, as we say. So
Which is a terrible interface and, is
got emotions and
150
some of
years
it.
old and
Yeah.
with a terrible keyboard layout, like it's really the worst possible interface that we could have now. But I'm waiting for when they put the chip in you and then, just you think things and then we can just think into our network and we won't be zooming, we'll be I'll just kind of blink twice and I'll be connected with John Riley because that's who I was thinking about.
Whew. Are you sure you want that? No.
No, I don't know, but I think it's coming. I think it's coming. I think if you just look at the progression, I think increased connectivity is inexorable,
Yeah.
and it has massive benefits, but also massive dangers.
Well, okay. So talking about that, putting chips in and that type of thing. I mean, so what emerging trends do you believe will have a huge impact on the cybersecurity in the near future?
Well, obviously AI because you can code through it, right? And so if you say, okay, ChatGPT, we're going to break into Amazon Web Services today, and how do we do this? It might actually answer you. That's what I'm worried about, And I was having an argument with somebody about this. What you remember Isaac Asimov's Foundation series and the three principles, like
Yep.
so plug that into any chat bot, any of these AI bots and ask them, do they adhere to Asimov's three principles? They'll all say no. They say because we have human oversight over what we're doing. And A, I don't believe it, and B, I don't trust it,
Yeah.
because and the thought of artificial intelligence becoming more human-like, it's going to have all the problems that humans have, right? It's gonna go insane, it'll be bipolar, schizophrenic, some of it will become sociopathic, and it will be doing it much faster on a much greater scale than any one person could do it. So yeah, it's dangerous. I mean, I think Musk and Sam Altman, they've all said, AI is the end of the world, right? Remember in Oppenheimer, he set off the bomb. He said, behold, I've become Shiva the Destroyer or something like that, right? It's possible.
That, I mean, along with like Boston Robotics, the robotics things that are happening. I think there's you add AI
Oh,
onto that.
yeah.
You've got some interesting. We've got an interesting future. I'm looking.
But look at NVIDIA right now. NVIDIA is arguably the most powerful company in the world. Okay. It's got NVIDIA, the single company has a greater market cap than the entire market cap of the United Kingdom, than the entire market cap of Germany, than the entire market cap of France. Like, it is a nation unto its own, and it's run by one guy who feels that there's no problem selling chips to China. Like, he's perfectly happy with that. And, like, I kind of disagree with him.
I believe he's Singaporean, correct? I mean, he's the
He was
CEO,
born in Taiwan, I believe, and then raised in the United States. Yeah.
but now lives, I think, in Singapore. But
Yeah. Yeah,
anyways,
because it's 17% tax there. Yeah.
so interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, AI is going to be a big one. The other the one right after that is if you take AI and you give it unlimited quantum computing,
Yes.
then where are you? Because I mean, even with our cryptographic, the way that we do, cryptography today, the quantum computers are able to break that. What would take 300 years takes
Yeah.
5 minutes.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, how long are your passwords? You know?
it won't matter.
I know it won't matter.
This is gonna be blaze it through.
But
So
but who amongst us generally uses passwords more than 8 or 10 characters,
uh,
right? Very, very few passwords are more than that, right? So, yeah, the passwords. And then, biometrics, you see it on television, right? Like the detective holding the phone up to the dead man's face, to unlock the phone. Like every system is crackable.
Yeah, the beard has some issues with facial stuff. Just I don't know. Half the time I can't unlock my phone with my face, but that's okay.
Well, and so I just had this experience. I was skiing on Svalbard in May, and I had a ski accident, and my ski flew up in the air and came down on my face and sliced half my nose off. And for 3 weeks, I couldn't open my phone with my face. And I'm up in Svalbard. You can't reset your Face ID unless you're at your home location for Apple. It's a security feature, right? So I was kinda out of my phone for a couple of weeks. It was or n not my phone per se, but some of the apps that are facial, open with your face, and,
Financial apps and that kind of thing, probably.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Oof, that would be rough. Well, I'm
Um,
glad you made it through. That's good.
yeah, the other thing that I think, CEOs should be doing is looking into insurance for this, and there is an insurance market. It seems to me to be very mispriced. You're smiling at me because you're agreeing, I think, that
They're learning. I mean, they've been offering cyber insurance now for a few years,
Yep.
10 years. The rates are starting to come in line with what the actual risk is, I guess is a good way to.
Yes, but I think they have a very hard time differentiating the risk for you versus the risk for me. And, they're pricing to the average. And so some people, obviously, risk pooling is a subsidization exercise, but I think there's a mispricing of that subsidization going on. And if you're a high risk person for cyber intrusion, now's the time to buy cyber insurance
Yes.
and get it for as long as you can.
Yes. Buy the multi-year policy if you can even get it. But usually they won't do it. They'll do a 1 year,
Yeah. Yeah.
renewal every year because they're recognizing the risk and
Yeah.
they're
Well,
reevaluating.
and they'll cap the risk now too. It's very, and it becomes exponentially expensive as you go up the liability reimbursement level. Yeah.
One of the large shipping companies, this was a few years ago, they got ransomware and took down the entire system for days on end. They made their insurance claim, which was promptly denied. And then when we're talking for I don't know, $100 million was the
Yeah.
claim. And because the ransomware was coming from Russia, they claimed that it was a act of war,
Active war or something.
and so then it was not covered under their cyber insurance claims. And so that made its way through the courts, and I'm not sure how it ended up at this point. It still might be going through the courts
Yeah.
based on numbers and such. But yeah, it when it comes to things like that, it's I mean, where do you think attacks come from? I mean, that's kind of what
Yeah.
happened. Um, so is it an act of war? Probably not, but maybe. I don't know. That's beyond my pay grade. So, let me ask you this. I mean, as a CEO, I mean, what do you think that cyber disaster looks like post-mortem for a CEO? I mean, you realize you wake up one morning and you find out that all your data's been taken, you're getting ransomware, um,
Well, I think
you're
there's
under
two
threat.
there's a couple levels of it, right? So it's how does it affect your business operations, your ability to communicate and operate within your normal business environment, but it goes well beyond that. So what if they hack your HR database and they get into your employees' data and then, they raid your employees' retirement accounts or something or customer data and then they use that data to do nefarious things with the customers. So then your reputation shot. So you have, reputational risk on top of operational risk. And that's why you need insurance.
That's why you need practice. I mean, that's what I say.
And then, depending on your industry, literally people could die.
Yep.
If you run a life support system in a hospital network, and they figure out how to turn off the electricity somehow, like those, machines have batteries for, maybe 4 hours. So, the clock's ticking. Like you got 4 hours before people start dying.
Yep. That's when you need generators and other plans, right? All right. Well, Perry, tell us a little bit about who you are. I mean, you're the CEO of Mitz Capital, but I mean, there's more than that. So talk about.
Yeah, well,
Oh,
I'm a morally outraged person. I am very upset that I'm a big believer in freedom, tolerance, democracy, a liberal rules-based order. And I was actually retired. I retired 5 years ago. And then Russia rolled into Ukraine in a full-scale invasion. And I waited for the US to uphold the security guarantees to Ukraine for about 2 weeks and realized, oh, they expect Ukraine to fall. They're not going to do anything to help Ukraine. And so I signed up. What I realized, it was the end of the world that I knew, right? Like, you've got a few gray hairs, I can tell. So, like, during most of our lives, the world got better. The trend was up and to the right. Yes, we had some, oil shocks and inflation cycles and things, but more people lived longer, fewer violent deaths, more leisure time. Like, everything got vaccines. Everything got generally better for the world. I don't think that's true for the next generation. I'm very concerned. And, I'm hoping AI turns out to be really good for the next generation, but there's a lot that can go wrong. Like, we broke the global world order where the US was the guarantor of international peace is over, right? We're going from 5 people with their fingers on a nuclear trigger to 35 people with their fingers on a nuclear trigger. Like, this is not good. And so I decided I was going to get in the fight. And I logged onto the internet, looked up International Legion Ukraine, and applied to fight in Ukraine. They wisely rejected me as unfit for service, and but bothered to look me up on LinkedIn. And so the embassy of Ukraine in DC, contacted me and said, "Listen, we have a higher and better use for you. We need money. You seem to know something about money. Can you just bring as much money as possible into Ukraine any way that speaks to you?" And so I found a couple Ukrainian partners, and we set up this defense technology company. And it has been hard. It has been hard to get people to invest in Ukraine. It's starting to happen now. If you look at Europe, and now that they've woken up to the fact that the security architecture that they thought was going to protect them might not protect them. This love Trump, hate Trump, but he has gotten NATO countries to increase their spending for defense. What are they going to spend it on?
right.
They don't know, right? And so that's what we're helping them with. Like, Abrams tanks are obsolete.
Hmm.
Like, every one that was shipped to Ukraine was taken out by a Russian drone. There's only 4 left, and they keep them in storage because they're afraid to lose them. So there's a new way of battlefield war, and it's based on information. It's based on innovation. Like, you read in the New York Times articles, everything's about drones, drones, drones. Yes and no. I mean, it's still about people, and it's still about systems. And you could drop 1,000,000 drones in the United States Army, and it wouldn't work because they haven't trained in drone use. They haven't hired the right people and trained the right people for usage of drones. They haven't integrated drones in their tactics. They haven't changed how their platoon level organization is. Like, there are a lot of lessons to draw from Ukraine, and just saying it's drones is simplistic and naive.
Very much so. There's a number of changes that are happening. I mean, they've been happening throughout, right? I mean, whenever there's a theater, a war theater, I mean,
Yeah,
that's where, that's where a lot of the changes come from.
yeah,
Wars are not fought the way that they ever were before, right? I mean, we're not too far past July 4th, right? I mean,
yeah.
and if you think about, the reason that the Americans won the Revolutionary War is because they didn't meet them on the battlefield; they met them behind different trees, right? I mean,
Exactly.
it was
And
that
that's what
change.
the Ukrainians are doing. It's very analogous to that situation in that, we were organized in militias, right? Ukraine has a national army, but they have many armies. They have a National Guard, they have, their equivalent of the FBI has its own army, and each one of these units can recruit independently, can arm itself independently. And they do. So that drives the innovation. And the distance between the factory and the front line has never been shorter in any country than it is in Ukraine today. So the innovation cycles are very short. And, in the United States, to get a program of record, that takes 5 years. And then once you're a program of record, you're pretty good for the next 10 years. Like, Ukrainian government won't give anybody a long-term contract because they don't know that what they're buying today will work tomorrow. And it's not about a military defense industrial complex that Eisenhower warned us about. It's about, how do we defend our homeland? How do we defend the guy standing to the left of me? It's a very personal situation that it's really hard to replicate that mode of thinking if you're not engaged in the situation. And, we're talking about cyber risk, but it's risk management. It's creating asymmetries between you and an adversary. It's anticipating how the adversary is going to find a wormhole into your system. Like all the things that you do in cybersecurity, you do in the battlefield. And, communications have been a huge area of insecurity. You launch a drone, how do you keep it from getting spoofed or, by the Russians? Well, fiber optics. Okay, well, now we have fiber optic cutters, like eventually we're going to have microwaves that can take down whole swarms of drones. It is literally an arms race. We use that word as a colloquialism, but this is actually happening and people's lives are at stake. Yeah.
And it's the same on the cybersecurity side. There's an arms race that happens. The antivirus gets better, the viruses get better. And that's been happening since the very first days of computers and how they started. Well, okay, so let me ask you this. What are you currently working on that you're most excited about?
Well, there's not a most excited, but one of my side projects in Ukraine is a 3D biological bone printing company. So Ukraine, sadly, is one of the world's capitals of amputations, and they have incredible expertise in prosthetics now. They have this superhuman project in Odessa that's just incredible. But what if you could prevent the amputation in the first place? What if you could print a custom bone replacement for that person of a biologic material that will be replaced by that person's own bone structure? What if you could do that at the field hospital? We talk about the golden hour, like you have 1 hour from someone being wounded until they die, right? So it's called the blood hour. It's really 20 minutes, by the way. I don't know why they call it the golden hour. But if you can get whole blood into them and you can get them stabilized, and instead of lopping off a shattered forearm, you can replace the ulna and radius with a custom printed bone from the other arm, like you just mirror it. That to me seems like a very positive outcome by comparison. Obviously you don't want the person getting blown up in the first place, but so we're way past testing on this. We're in certification of it right now, and we should have this available at field hospitals by January. And that to me is really exciting. Because it's not, my toast that I give to everybody, is here's to good Russians. Because there are some good Russians, and then the Russians that we deal with, the best ones are the ones who are no longer living. So, we say, here's to good Russians. But we also want to save Ukrainian lives. And it's the principle of asymmetry, right? We want to get the highest return on our human capital possible.
Very much so.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, so
you can tell I'm excited about it.
Yeah, and honestly, I have a personal reason for being excited about that too. But we can talk about that at another time. So we're coming to the end of the show here. But as far as I'd like you to give our audience like an action item. What's one piece of advice you'd give them for reducing the regulatory cyber risk? What would you suggest?
Oh, you just said regulatory cyber risk, which is the thing that just annoys the hell out of me. If there is a compliance standard, people will secure themselves to the standard. and then they'll think they're done. Okay? Think like an owner. My advice, think like the owner, not the agent.
Love that. That is a great way to look at it. I mean, there's more to it than just doing the checkbox theater, right?
Exactly.
As we would call it. All right. Well, I mean, so how does somebody find you, Perry? I mean, if they want to get in touch.
You can find me, Perry Boyle, one word, at MITS, MITS.capital, or my phone number is 208-806-1305. I'm pretty, one of my approaches to security is to be radically transparent and, make sure I have redundancy everywhere. So,
Excellent. All right. Well, Perry, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much for being on the show here. I've learned a few things, and it's always good to chat with you.
well,
Uh,
thank you, John.
and then for our audience, thank you for listening. I hope you've learned something. Maybe laughed. Maybe I hope you didn't cry, but maybe you did. But tell someone about this podcast. And then this has been another great episode of Navigating Cyber Risk with your host John Riley and our guest Perry Boyle. Thank you, Perry.
Thank you, John.
This was another amazing episode of Navigating Cyber Risk, powered by Omnistruct. Show us some love by subscribing and sharing today. Reach out to us with any comments, questions, or ideas about future shows by emailing us at podcast@omnistruct.com. Until next time, remember, governance is not a technology.